Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The great wizards who were able to assume any form they were engaged by King Abhoja Kamsa to kill Krishna. But in the course of his pastimes, the Lord killed them as easily as a child breaks dolls. Purport. The atheistic Kamsa wanted to kill Krishna just after his birth. He failed to do so, but later on he got information that Krishna was living in Vrindavan at the house of Nanda Maharaj. He therefore engaged many wizards who could perform wonderful acts and assume any form they liked. All of them appeared before the child in various forms like Aga, Baka, Puthana, Shakata, Trinavarta, Denuka, and Garbhada. And they tried to kill the Lord at every opportunity. One after another, all of them were killed by the Lord as if he were only playing with dolls. Children play with toy lions, elephants, boars, and many similar dolls which are broken by the children in the course of their playing with them. Therefore, before the Almighty Lord, any powerful living being is just like a tiny toy lion in the hands of a playing child. No one can accept God in any capacity, and therefore no one can be equal to or greater than Him. Nor can anyone attain the stage of equality with God by any kinds of endeavor. Jnana, yoga, and bhakti are three recognized processes of spiritual realization. The perfection of such processes can lead one to the desired goal of life in spiritual value. But that does not mean that one can attain a perfection equal to the Lord's by any endeavor. The Lord is the Lord at every stage. When he was playing like a child on the lap of his mother Jasoda Mayi, or just like a cowherd boy with his transcendental friends, he continued not to remain God, without the slightest diminution of his six opulences. Thus he was always unrivaled. Text again. Prayuktan Bodha Rajena Mayina Kamarupina Lilaya Vyanudat Tamstan Bala Kridanaka Aniva. The great wizards who were able to assume any form were engaged by the king of Bodha Kamsa to kill Krishna. But in the course of his pastimes, the Lord killed them as easily as a child breaks dolls. Namo Vishnu Vidaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskya Jayade Sudhana. Natasya karyam karanam javidite natastamasyavi kaskrishite parasya shaktir vivitaiva shriyate swabhava balaki kriyacha. That natasya karyam karanam javidite, that the Supreme Lord has nothing to do. Natastamasyavi kaskrishite, nor is anyone equal to or greater than he is. Parasya Shaktir Vidaiva Shriyate. By his energies, all these different activities are being performed. Parasya Shaktir Vividaya Shriyate Swabhavaki Bala Kriyacha. One after another, Swabhavaki, by his own power, Swabhavaki Bala Kriyacha. Strength, intelligence, everything is happening sequentially, perfectly. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, how is it possible to take shelter of someone unless one is convinced that the person is worthy to take shelter of? Prabhupada gives the story of one barba. He was wondering who's the best person to take shelter of. So he noticed that in his village, there was one man coming around, a tax collector, and everyone was giving him money. So he thought that this man must be giving shelter to these people, otherwise why would they be giving him money? So he decided he'd become an assistant tax collector. But then he noticed that the tax collector was giving money to the mayor of the city. So then he thought, well, actually, the most important person is not the tax collector, it must be the mayor. So then he became an assistant to the mayor. But then he noticed the mayor was giving some money to the head of the state, the governor. So he thought the governor must be the supreme. So he took shelter of the governor. But then he saw the governor was giving money to the president. And so he took shelter of the president. But then he saw the president was giving some money to a Brahmin. So he thought maybe I should take shelter of the Brahmin. But then he saw the Brahmin was praying to God, to Krishna. So he thought, oh, this must be the person to take shelter of. So everyone needs shelter. Everyone is wondering what is the shelter. It says, Tarko apratishta shudhiya nibina nesavarishira yasya vibina. That people are arguing what is the highest truth, what is the thing that will give us the most happiness perpetually. So tarka apratishta, in the absence of perfect knowledge, it's called at-pratishta. It's unsteady, because then anyone can come up with another idea. Whatever idea we come up with, someone may come up with another idea. Whether it's better or not, that remains to be seen. Shutiya vibina. And even in the scriptures, there are different opinions. There are scriptures for people in the mode of ignorance. There are scriptures for people in the mode of passion. And there are scriptures for people in the mode of goodness. And there are scriptures that are actually transcendental, like the Bhagavad Purana. And they're beneficial for the persons that they're actually directed towards. Just like if you are ill and you want to take some medicine, then it's best to have that medicine prescribed by someone who actually knows medicine. Otherwise, if you just take any medicine whimsically, just like if you go to the drugstore, I guess it's probably apothec here also, and you ask for some medicine, and you take a look at the different medicines on the shelf, and you decide that maybe I should choose a medicine that matches my sari or my dhoti, it's probably not the best way of choosing which medicine to take. And you have to go to the expert person, he can describe to you the proper medicine. So similarly, for those in the mode of ignorance, the medicine is different, the duties are different from those in the mode of passion or goodness or even transcendental. Therefore, Shrutiyani Bina, Nasara Rishir, Yasyana Binam. And even in the great sages who are prescribing the medicine, they have a different opinion on reality. There are Gyanis, there are Yogis, there are Karmis, and they all have different opinions. So how to figure out what is the proper opinion, what is the proper medicine for ourselves, what are the proper activities? Therefore it says that hid in the heart of a person who knows things as they are, we can find out the truth. Knows things as they are, according to whoever we are, that's what we're going to know. Whatever modes of nature, if any, that we're situated under, that's how we're going to see things. Therefore, Tarko Pratishta Shudhiya Nibina Nasavarishir Yasya Nibinam, that hidden in the heart of a self-realized person is pure knowledge, and hidden knowledge, and everyone else's heart is different knowledge. As they go again. Tarka pratishta shutiya nibina nasari sharyasya nibina. To hide. Let's see. Mahajano yena katasapanta. I'll try it one more time. That Tarako apratishta shutiya nibina nasari sharyasya nibina. In the heart. Riddhi. Does anyone know that verse? From the Mahabharata. Something about hidden in the heart of a self-realized person. So, hidden in the heart of a self-realized person is actually realization, but as I said, in everyone else's heart there's some understanding too. Everyone sees part of the absolute truth, because there's nothing but the absolute truth, and it's just according to the filter that we see things. Therefore, Mahatmana, Mahajano yena kata sapanta. What's the word?
Whole verse?
No, just that third line.
Dharmasya
tattvam nihitam guhayam. So dharma means what is factual, actually. What is the essence? Everyone is trying to figure out what is their duty, what is reality, so that so that they can actually become happier and more secure. Dharmasya tattvam. Tattva means that which can be experienced. That's not just theoretical, but something that's actually directly before us that we can actually have some experience of. Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam, something that we can understand. Guhayam means that there are many things that go through our minds. We don't really take them very seriously, they're not very deep. But guhayam, something that's actually experienced. So to find everyone will get benefited from associating with people according to how much real experience they have of the truth. Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhaya mahajano yena kata sapanta. So everyone is choosing a mahajan who they think is big, important, who has the qualities that they want to obtain, and everyone has to do that. As it says here that for Agasura, Bakasura, Garbhasura, all of them, they chose Kamsa as their Mahajan. And they followed him. Even gave up their lives for him. And for those in the mode of passion, then they may choose some wealthy person who makes money and seems to control the material nature, and they take shelter of him, become a servant. And for those in mode of goodness, they may choose something like an environmentalist specialist or something, or they may go in the forest and appreciate the flowers and the trees and the birds and the bees. So everyone has a hero, everyone has their example that they're following, or many examples that they follow. Maybe during the day, we're remembering something in the mode of passion, we're in the mode of passion, then we correct ourselves and then we remember some in the mode of goodness, and then we get into ignorance, lamenting. So all these different stages of consciousness are all due to our different associations that we've had in the past. They don't come just by accident out of nowhere. They come by our association with different examples in the past and are appreciating them and following them. And then these things we're reminded of these things in the present, although we may not remember exactly those persons or that person whose example we followed in order to produce this particular type of experience that we're having in the present. But one who's taking shelter of Krishna, one who actually accepts Krishna as the shelter, then he finds the shelter of all the shelters. Otherwise, one may try this shelter and that shelter and another shelter, and that's why we're going through so many different moods all the time, as if we're going up and down like a yo-yo. Because we've chosen so many different shelters in the past, and some of them seem to work for a while, but none of them seem to work forever, and therefore we've gone from one shelter to the next. Therefore Prahlad Maharaj said, Balasya neha sharanam pitaro nrsimha. So Balasya, of the child, Balasya neha, in this world, Balasya neha sharanam pitaro nrsimha. So the parents may try to give their children shelter, at least in a normal family. Well, I don't know how normal it is. But in a civilized family, the parents try to give shelter to their children. So they may try, but they may not be successful. The child may succumb to death, even though they try the best they can. Balasya neha sharanam pitaro nrsimha nartasya chagadam. Artasya means one who's suffering, that one who's diseased. And therefore, nartasya chagadam, agadam. Agadam means medicine prescribed by a bona fide doctor. So you may have a very good doctor, you may have very good medicine, the patient may survive, but he may die anyhow. Udanvanti majitau now. So there may be a now, a boat, and it's in the water. It may cross the ocean, may cross the lake, or may sink. Even if it's a strong boat like the Titanic was supposed to be, still, by Krishna's arrangement, it may sink anyhow. Balasya neha sharanam pitaro nrsimha nartasya chagadam udanvato majatau now tat privitir ihanja shesta tat vido anudinam tat upekshitanam. So it depends. Krishna may desire, because, or sanction, whatever you may think. Krishna is neutral in the material world, but he desires, for one reason or another, that the child grows up and becomes an adult, or he may decide that this is the time for the child to die. But even if the child grows up and becomes an adult, even if the medicine is effective, even if the boat crosses the ocean, still one has to die anyhow, either today or tomorrow. My favorite story is the engineer who was working the Titanic, and when the Titanic hit the iceberg and exploded, the engine exploded, then this engineer became covered with oil and was thrown into the ocean. And because he was covered with oil, he was able to survive the ice-cold water of the Atlantic Ocean at that particular time. So he made it, he was saved, and he was in New York 1 month later, celebrating his being saved from drowning in the ocean. And he was intoxicated, walking on the street, and he tripped. Unfortunately, in the street, you have a curb. So there's between the sidewalk and the street, there's a little curb, and there was some rain and 2 centimeters of water accumulated on the curb where he fell, and his nose fell into the 2 centimeters of water and drowned. So Krishna desired that your time is up. You were saved from the drowning in the ocean, but you can't. It's rather unusual, but you're going to drown in New York City. Similarly, one lady was in Bali, and she left a bar in Bali some years ago. Just 5 minutes before, there was a terrorist bomb that went off and killed many of the tourists in the bar. So she decided to go to a safer place, Australia, and celebrate with her friends, her being saved. And they were up in northern Australia, where there's the reefs, and they were going swimming at night, and one alligator came and ate her right before a sign which said, "Beware of alligators." So when our time is up, it's up. We may think I've escaped danger, but ultimately the danger is only escaped when we get out of the place where there's so much danger. Mahatmana, what is that? What's that verse from Bhagavad Gita? Oh, actually it's in the Bhagavad Gita. Punyusho murare, bhavambudira vatsapadam, padam padam yadvipadam natesham. Mahashvitam ye parapalavam plavam. Mahatpadam punyusho murare, bhavambudira vatsapadam, padam padam yadvipadam natesham. That one who's taking shelter of the shelter of all shelters, Krishna, that he can easily cross over the ocean of material misery, just like one can easily cross over the footprint, the amount of water contained in the footprint of a calf. But those who don't take shelter of Krishna, for them there's only danger at every step. We may be confident that we'll take our next step and the earth will support us, but I know one place in Peru, one day an earthquake came and literally swallowed up the entire city. Everyone in the city disappeared. So we may say, it can't happen to me because I'm a nice person. But I'm sure, we can be assured that everyone in that city thought they were a nice person too. So this is a place where there's danger, so one has to find out whether Krishna can actually protect one. Ananyas chintayanto mam, ye jana paripasate, tesham nityabhyuktanam, yoga shemam aham yaham. For those who constantly engage my service, meditating on my transcendental form, I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So this is faith in Krishna. But it doesn't come by just putting on a sari or a dhoti, or changing our dress or our address. It comes from constant engagement in devotional service, so we actually think about Krishna in devotion. The more one is absorbed in actual conscious of Krishna, then the more Krishna dadami buddhi yogam tam. The more enthusiastic and steadily one engages in devotional service with love for Krishna, then the result is the Dhammi Buddhi Yogam Tam. Krishna gives intelligence by which you can make further progress and take shelter of him more. Develop more faith that he's the shelter of all shelters. No one can avoid the destruction of this body or the problems that go on with a material body, but we're not the body. And if one comes to the platform, instead of being under the shelter of the material energy, one actually comes under the shelter of the spiritual energy, then one can actually feel what real protection is. Real protection is not simply arranging the material nature in a way that's more pleasing to us. Real protection is arranging our nature so that we're actually qualified to enter into the spiritual nature. Then we can actually have real faith that I'm eternal and all my material problems, all the problems that I think are mine, go away when I realize I'm not the body, or the mind, or the false ego. And one is situated in a world and an experience of eternality where there are no problems. There's only the possibility of reaching this pure spiritual platform where there's only all the activities are full of bliss and ever expanding consciousness eternally. So that's real shelter. Everything else is just durashaya, false shelter. Nite vidu swartikatim, hi Vishnu, Darashya ye bahya arthamanina. That people don't know that the goal of life is to take shelter of Krishna, and therefore they're taking shelter of so many insignificant things that can't really give them shelter. And in order to do that, they take shelter of people who have no shelter, no ultimate shelter. They're blind, and they're taking shelter of other blind people. So there's no real benefit. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj advises that Naishamatis Tavadurukramangrim, that one should find someone who's giving us Krishna's shelter. Anyone. That those who are giving us Krishna's shelter by talking about Krishna, by showing us an example of Krishna's service, then they're real shelters to take shelter of. And the more pure one is, then the more one is giving shelter, an example. And one's words will become powerful enough to actually be taken seriously. Then, if we get a little experience how Krishna is the shelter of all shelters, then we might become inspired in spite of the fact that we may become sometimes deviated, but still we'll go back to the path because we know that there's no other shelter ultimately than Krishna. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have one question about the purport of the verse. Several days before we were discussing these demons that were mentioned in this verse also. Do you have any information who is Gardhabhasura? Is he the same as the Dhenukasura or different?
Yeah, that's Dhenukasura. Sura. Dhenukasura. Yeah, Dhenukasura.
Because here he mentioned them twice, Dhenukasura and Gardhabhasura.
I guess he must have been a very important demon. As far as I remember, Gardhabhasura. Best thing to go on the internet and look it up. Maybe you can find someone who mentions it. Anything else? Yes.
I have one more question about your yesterday's lecture, but it's also somewhat connected. In this world, it said Charita Charanana, we are chewing the chew. But also for one who is newly accepting the process of Krishna consciousness, this process of getting up early in the morning every day, doing the same sadhana every day, doing the same activities every day, it might also seem like doing the same thing every day.
Yeah, it is the same thing every day, hopefully.
So what is the difference between chewing the chew in the material world and chewing the chew in the spiritual world?
Well, in the spiritual world, everything is fresh and new. In the material world, it gets tiresome. In the material world, we're trying to satisfy the demands of our senses. I think we only temporarily satisfy them before they blaze up again. In the spiritual world, we try and satisfy Krishna's senses. And when we satisfy Krishna's senses, then when you water the root of the tree, it goes to all the leaves and branches. So we're one of the leaves and branches, or at least one of the leaves. And therefore we experience Krishna's bliss. Rather than experience the temporary satisfaction of the material senses by satisfying lust, anger, and greed, we feel Krishna's prema, and we become blissful. And it's always new and fresh. Not just getting up in the same time every day. Depends on one's consciousness. We're not doing it just to get up. We're doing it so that we can develop our Krishna consciousness. Hopefully, during the night we were dreaming of Krishna. When we woke up, then we have some opportunity to serve Krishna in a different way. But if we wake up in the mode of ignorance every morning, and we remain in the mode of ignorance, it'll become boring after some time. And we'll sleep later and later because we're in the mode of ignorance. Or we wake up in the mode of passion, or even in goodness, then after a while, we'll get bored with it. But if we wake up in Krishna consciousness, then it'll always be fresh and new. Another day to serve Krishna. I mean, in the spiritual world, they wake up every day also. But they're ever more enthusiastic because yesterday was so blissful and ecstatic and loving that they're looking forward to another more exciting day today. Anything else? Yes?
How does person actually go from the one mode to another? Is this only association with those in the higher modes, or is there any other?
Yeah, it's always association. By association, for instance, we get instructions, or we get instructions either verbally or by seeing example, and when we follow that, then we get the result of that. The modes are, as Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, there are different mentalities, there are different types of intelligence, there are different types of activities. So the modes of, in all the activities, gross and subtle, there are modes. So if we get association with those in some mode, and we accept it and follow it, then we also get that experience with that mode. We get under that mode. Kvala Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.